might as well put the RAM. Now the manual mentioned that the best way on this to set up the RAM was, so you want to get the dual channel running, which we do, was that, say you can put it in this, on a usual motherboard you would put it in the matching slots, wouldn't you? And then the other two, if you only had two like we've got here and you wanted to run it in dual channel mode, you'd put it in the matching slot, because you'd only have one set of 4 usually, and you'd put it in there and the other one would go in there. Or if you was using the black slots, you'd put it in the black spot, and then the black spot. With this one, apparently the manual says, see, obviously it's I haven't had an X79 board before, so or a 99, so it says that the matching, if you want to pair them up, that the best thing to do is to put it in basically the opposing slot, the other side to it. So you'd put one here, and then you'd put one in the opposing side, so it'd be this black slot, and then it'd be this black slot here, or it'd be this blue slot, and then it'd be this blue slot here, or this outside. If you put it in this outside blue slot and you want a dual channel, then you put it in the outside blue slot on the opposite side. So it works a little bit weirdly, according to the manual, than what you're used to doing. You might think that you could just pair them up in that slot and leave that one empty till you need it, but no, it prefers you to do it like that on this. So that's one thing. These aren't pull back, by the look of it. These aren't pull back what you used to slots, but they don't pull back. So I'm going to start with the first slots, because the first slot's closer to the heatsink, because I'm going to be filling all the slots up, and it's just easier that way. Now the other side are pull out. They do pull out, as you can see, but this side doesn't for some reason. They're not set up that way. There's like a little clip on there, so we'll look for the notch. You see the notch mark is there, so we'll line it up. The notch mark is there on there, so we'll line that RAM up. It's basic. Line it up in this side first, I think, with these. And then you can push that down so it's located in there correctly. Make sure you push down sufficiently hard enough just to make sure. I mean, you can tell that's locked in, but you just make sure, because I am unpacking. Even though I'm on the anti-static bag, which, by the way, you make sure you fold that inside out so the anti-static is working outside the bag before you do. And I've also got it on some packaging, thick packaging as well, so that's obviously affected. It's not very firm, it's very spongy, protective underneath, so that's not when I'm pressing down on there, it might not be pressing down as hardly to click into place as I want, so I might want to put that down on somewhere firm first before I and give it another press down, just to make sure before I'm fully happy. So that seems seems all honky dory there. It is very different, these ends on here. You've probably run into them before a few times, but you know, putting it in this side first, and then there's only the one side that locks. Very strange to me. Usually they both lock either side. So that's certainly something different with this motherboard for me. So we'll wait to we put the other DIMMs in place. Okay, we'll begin to remove the old computer components, the motherboard, the graphics card. I'm reusing my Corsair TX 850M 850 watt power supply. Don't really see no reason why I shouldn't. Going to reuse the R9 290X here, which has the G-lid cooler that I installed on it, so it's a little bit deeper. I think on the new motherboard we'll have a look, because we've got some different slots and things like that. So you know, the PCI really isn't, even though I do have one of the old gold Creative X5 cards that is a PCI slot. You can't really, have to do some messing around to get the drivers to work in Windows 10. Windows 7 last time round, so Windows 10 this time. I'm not going to bother with that, I don't think. So I think the X79 motherboard does have one PCI slot, but all the others are two PCI Express 1 times. So I'm going to be needing the 1 times slot on that board. If we have a look here, you'll see we've got two 1 times PCI Express, and there's just the one PCI. So I'm going to be doing without the PCI. So this is probably the best 16 times slot for me to use, because that cooler on the R9 will cover up the next slot. So that's probably the best one for me to use. These two slots are PCI Express 16 times. The grey one is an 8 times PCI Express slot. Obviously you can use it for smaller cards like 1 times cards as well. Obviously it'll only go up to there, but so if you wanted to do try SLI or try Crossfire, obviously it'd all be running in 8 times, because this slot here is limited to 8 times. But if you're doing dual SLI or Crossfire, then it'll all be running at 16 times with these two slots. So don't use these two if you're going to do dual SLI or Crossfire. Use these two on this board. So we'll get the other RAM out the machine first, I think, before we take it all out, and then put that in ready into this machine. So that's an indicator to I'm removing the last pieces of RAM. That the clearance that you sometimes need to get with the CPU cooler and or the fan part of it, most likely, which in this case overhangs the memory, and the memory was able to have slotted in fine. However, you couldn't pull the memory out without removing the CPU fan, and obviously bringing that back. Also, it's another good thing to note that you do get a lot of dust every time that accumulates on the fan fins. I'll actually clean that now, because I think I will be using this this board again with a KVM switch, because with the ASRock intelligent energy saving software. This can actually let a Core i5 or a Core i7, in this case a Core i7 860, run at about 10 watts, between 10 and 30 watts. It's a 95 watt chip, you know, for normal day-to-day usage. So I was going to buy another Kabini just for normal day-to-day use, because it's a waste of time, wasting a lot of power just for you know, the usual web surfing, music playing and things like that, and emails and any office productivity stuff, and use the new setup just for the anything that's going to push it, like or any gaming or anything like that. I was going to keep Kabini on a KVM switch, but considering the Kabini's 25 watts, which we loaded, the fact that this can push out the power of a Core i7 at you know, an i7 860, which is a hell of a lot more powerful than a Kabini, AMD Kabini chip, at even half the wattage of that loaded Kabini. It'd be, you know, a no-brainer not to keep it, to be honest. I've already got another empty case underneath, because I used to run a KVM switch set up before a few years ago. I'll need to get a new KVM switch though, because the one I've got is VGA. Obviously, even though the monitor does have a VGA on there still, even though it's not used, you're going to want to use DVI. The graphics cards now don't really support VGA, even with an adapter. They've kind of left that behind now. Some of the graphics card, obviously I'll be keeping, but some of these expansion, well, this is a USB 3 expansion. The new board has got USB 3 native, but the USB 3 extra slots on here will probably come in handy. I don't know if I've got anything. Oh, the SATA 6 gigabits expansion card here as well. That actually came with the ASRock P55 Deluxe board, so I don't know if it will work with this Asus board or not. Anyway, but if it does, obviously you can use that. But I've not. Because I mean, there's BIOS and settings and everything in here for use with this card as well, so I don't think it will run just straight off the bat in another motherboard. But I can check that out and see, obviously. But virtually, obviously the drives, I keep the drives. There's two solid state drives, another laptop size hard drive, 2.5 inch, and an array of 3.5 inch drives. They're obviously going to be kept. You've used the Caller Master Hyper callers for years, so they are quite good. This is a different one, obviously, but they are quite good at calling. The case is a Caller Master case. Obviously, I'm going to be reusing that. It does have its annoyances. It's a decent enough case, but it does have its annoyances. That being the expansion card bit here, you have to undo every single screw for every single expansion and the graphics card, and remove this clip which slots. It's got like a locking slot that you push your foot and then pull out before you can get to the individual, in some cases. Say when you're putting an extension card in, or you're swapping a graphics card, and you have to undo all the things, and you have to make sure that they're all seated properly then, before even when you just installing one card, which can be a pain. But other than that, it's quite an okay I can't remember the model number of it, the front looks like that. Obviously you got your fans in the front, however I've took the fan out to make extra room for these hard drives, so I could push them forward a bit more on the travel to make more room in here, because there's a heck of a lot of wiring with this old ASRock board. Don't think I'm going to be needing this one drive, if I can find the blank in my drawer to go back in the slot up there, 5.25 slot. But there'll be a few things I'll take and use: the graphics card and the PSU and the array of drives, obviously, and this DVD drive. I'll probably swap that out for a Blu-ray, I think, within the next few weeks. May as well. Okay, so we've got our RAM out of the old system and we've put it in the new system. So it's basically a mirror image on the two with the channels and the XMS3 at the end. XMS3 at the end. Obviously I'm going to have to pick up some more RAM, DDR3 RAM somewhere along the line if I'm going to keep the old system, to make use of the low power output that it puts out for a chip of its power. But it's probably better off picking up one stick of 16GB or something for that. So we should be able to ready to swap it over now and wire everything up. I've usually made the bleeding computer by now, talking to you lot. It's what's holding me back at this rate.